Irene stands frozen at the corner of the lavish ballroom as her husband Thomas slips through the side door with Jessica, the new secretary. Everyone saw it. Everyone knows. Whispers spread like wildfire across the holiday party. Irene feels sick as her 5 years of marriage crumbles in public view. Her boss, Jack Parker, founder and owner of Parker Technologies, approaches with concern in his eyes. "Something's wrong," he says quietly. What happens next will change everything about Irene's life, career, and heart. I had been looking forward to the Parker Technologies holiday gala for months. As a senior project manager, I'd spent countless hours on the event committee, ensuring every detail was perfect for our celebration at the Grand Meridian Hotel. The crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow across the ballroom, highlighting the elegant decorations my team and I had selected. This year was special because I had finally convinced management to allow spouses to attend. "You're going to love my coworkers," I told Thomas that morning as he reluctantly tried on his suit. Jack Parker runs the kind of company where everyone feels valued. Thomas adjusted his tie with a sigh. "Do we really have to stay the whole night? You know I hate these corporate things." "It's important to me," I replied, trying to hide my disappointment at his attitude. After 5 years of marriage, Thomas's lack of enthusiasm for my career achievements still stung. While my role at Parker Technologies had flourished, his real estate business had stagnated, creating an unspoken tension between us. "Fine," he conceded, "but don't leave me alone with a bunch of tech geeks all night." I chose to ignore the comment and focused on getting ready. At 32, I had worked hard to reach my position, and tonight was my chance to proudly introduce my husband to the colleagues who had become like family. When we arrived, Thomas seemed oddly distracted, checking his phone every few minutes and scanning the room as if looking for someone. I attributed it to his discomfort in unfamiliar social situations and guided him around to meet my team members. "And this is Jessica," I said, introducing the attractive new secretary who had joined the company 3 months ago. "She's been a great addition to the administrative team." Jessica extended her hand to Thomas with a smile that seemed a touch too familiar. "Nice to meet you," she said, her voice carrying a hint of something I couldn't quite place. "Likewise," Thomas replied, holding her hand a beat longer than necessary. "I don't think we've met before." A subtle wink passed between them, so quick I almost missed it. Something cold settled in my stomach, but I pushed the feeling aside. I was being paranoid, surely. As the evening progressed, I noticed Jessica always seemed to be in Thomas's line of sight, and he kept disappearing for what he claimed were business calls. During one such absence, I spotted his phone on our table, screen lit up with an incoming message. I had never been the type to snoop, but something compelled me to glance at the display. The text preview made my blood run cold. "Can't wait to slip away tonight. Meet me by the east exit at 9. J." My fingers trembling, I picked up his phone. There were dozens of messages between Thomas and a contact saved simply as J, dating back nearly 2 months. The exchanges were intimate, explicit, and devastating. They had been planning secret meetings, including tonight, right under my nose. The betrayal cut deep, but worse was the realization that Jessica had specifically mentioned applying to Parker Technologies after meeting Thomas at one of his open houses. My husband and my coworker had been having an affair, and tonight they planned to flaunt it at my company's holiday party. I set the phone down, my mind racing and heart pounding. The elegant ballroom suddenly felt suffocating, the festive music grating. I spotted Thomas returning from his latest call and intercepted him before he could reach the table. "Can we talk privately?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. We stepped into a quiet alcove near the coat check. Thomas leaned against the wall with casual indifference that now seemed so obvious. "I saw your messages with Jessica," I said directly, watching his face closely. His expression shifted from shock to denial in an instant. "What are you talking about? And why are you going through my phone?" "Don't insult me by lying, Thomas. I saw everything." "How long have you been seeing her?" You're being ridiculous, he scoffed. Those messages could be about anything. I can't stop thinking about last weekend in the hotel. What exactly should I think that means? His jaw tightened. This is neither the time nor place to discuss this. We'll talk at home. Before I could respond, we were interrupted by the chiming of glasses. Jack Parker had taken the stage for his annual address. Thomas seized the opportunity to slip away, rejoining our table while I remained frozen in the alcove, trying to compose myself. I returned to find my seat empty, and Jessica's chair also vacant. My colleague Natalie gave me a questioning look, which I pretended not to notice as Jack spoke about the company's achievements and future vision. Normally, I would have been fully engaged, proud of my contributions to those successes. Tonight, I could barely focus on a single word. When the speech concluded and dinner was served, neither Thomas nor Jessica had returned. I pushed food around my plate, making empty conversation with coworkers while anxiety gnawed at my insides. "Are you okay, Irene?" Natalie asked quietly. "You seem distracted, and where's Thomas?" "I'm not sure," I answered truthfully. "Would you excuse me for a moment?" I wandered through the ballroom, checking the bar, the restrooms, and the hotel lobby. A young waiter noticed my distress and approached hesitantly. "Ma'am, if you're looking for a man in a navy suit and a blonde woman in red, I saw them heading toward the garden wing about 20 minutes ago." My heart sank. "Thank you," I managed to reply. The garden wing was on the opposite side of the hotel, far from the ballroom and main event spaces. Each step down the carpeted corridor felt heavier than the last. I heard them before I saw them, Jessica's giggle echoing from a secluded seating area around the corner. I stopped, unsure if I could face what I was about to witness. Taking a deep breath, I turned the corner to find Thomas with his arms around Jessica, their foreheads touching as they spoke in intimate whispers. "Well, this explains the business calls," I said, my voice sounding strangely calm, despite the hurricane of emotions inside me. They jumped apart, Jessica's eyes widening with alarm, while Thomas's face flushed with anger rather than shame. "Irene, this isn't what it looks like," Jessica began, but I cut her off with a raised hand. "Please don't. I saw the messages. I know everything." Thomas stepped forward. "Fine. Yes, Jessica and I have been seeing each other. It wasn't planned. It just happened." "Just happened? For 2 months? While she worked for my company?" Jessica at least had the decency to look embarrassed. "I met Thomas at an open house, before I knew he was your husband. When I found out Parker Technologies was hiring, it seemed like fate." "Fate," I repeated hollowly. "And tonight? Was it fate that you both decided to humiliate me at my company's holiday party?" "That's rich," Thomas snapped, suddenly defensive. "You've been so caught up in your precious career that you barely notice me anymore. When was the last time you asked about my day? My business is failing, Irene, and you're too busy impressing Jack Parker to care." The unfairness of his accusation stung worse than the betrayal. "So this is my fault? Your cheating is because I work hard at a job I love?" "It's not just about the affair," he continued, warming to his justification. "Jessica makes me feel appreciated, seen. When was the last time you made me feel that way?" I looked between them, these two people who had conspired behind my back, and felt a strange calm settle over me. "I need to get back to my colleagues. Enjoy your evening together." Thomas called after me, but I was already walking away, head high despite the tears threatening to spill. I returned to the ballroom, where the party continued in full swing, oblivious to my personal catastrophe. A small group of coworkers near the dessert table waved me over. "Irene, where have you been? And where's your husband?" asked Alan from marketing. The question hit me like a physical blow. Without thinking, I blurted out, "Actually, my husband just left me for Jessica from accounting." Stunned silence followed my announcement. Then Alan awkwardly corrected, "Jessica's from administration, not accounting." "Well," I replied with a bitter laugh, Apparently, she's now in my husband's department. The news spread across the party like wildfire, exactly as I'd feared it would when I first saw Thomas slip away with Jessica. Except now, I had confirmed it for everyone to hear. The next hour was excruciating. Colleagues either approached with uncomfortable sympathy or deliberately avoided me altogether. Whispers followed me everywhere, and I caught fragments of conversations speculating on how long the affair had been going on, whether I had suspected anything, and if my marriage had been in trouble. "Poor Irene," I overheard someone say. "Always so put together. Who would have thought?" Another voice replied, "I'm not surprised. That husband of hers never seemed interested in her work. And have you seen Jessica? She's been flirting with every man in the office since she started." I escaped to the ladies' room, locked myself in a stall, and finally allowed the tears to come. My marriage was over. My professional reputation felt tarnished, and I still had to somehow get through the rest of this wretched party and find a way home, since Thomas had driven us here. A soft knock on the stall door startled me. "Irene? It's Natalie. Are you okay?" I wiped my eyes and opened the door to find my closest work friend standing there with genuine concern on her face. "Everyone's talking, aren't they?" I asked. Natalie nodded, handing me a tissue. "I'm so sorry, Irene. For what it's worth, I never trusted Jessica. She did the same thing at Tech Solutions before she came here. Pursued a married VP until his wife found out." "Wait, what? How do you know this?" "My cousin works there. When Jessica started here, she warned me about her. I should have told you sooner, but I never thought she'd go after your husband." Natalie hesitated. "What will you do now?" "I have no idea," I admitted. "I don't even know how I'll get home. Thomas has the car." "I can drive you," Natalie offered. "Just say when you want to leave." I thanked her, but wasn't ready to flee just yet. Despite everything, I had worked too hard on this event to miss it entirely. Besides, leaving early would only fuel more gossip. "I'll find you later." After reapplying my makeup and taking several deep breaths, I returned to the party. I was approaching the bar when Jack Parker himself intercepted me, a look of genuine concern on his face. "Irene, do you have a moment?" he asked, gesturing to a quiet corner. At 38, Jack was younger than most company founders I knew, but his intelligence and business acumen had built Parker Technologies into a respected firm in just 7 years. As my direct supervisor, our relationship had always been strictly professional. He was fair but distant, focused on results rather than personal connections. "I've heard some concerning rumors," he began once we were seated. "I want to check if you're all right." The genuine concern in his voice nearly undid my composure. "I'm managing," I replied. "I apologize for any disruption to the event." Jack shook his head. "You have nothing to apologize for. If anyone should be sorry, it's the people who betrayed your trust." Something in his tone made me look up sharply. Jack's expression held more than casual empathy. There was recognition there, understanding. "You know, don't you? About being betrayed." It wasn't a question. He nodded slowly. "My divorce last year wasn't just because we grew apart, as the official story goes. Elizabeth left me for my business partner, Michael." "I had no idea," I said softly. "The company had been told the separation was amicable. We kept it quiet. Michael sold his shares and started a competing firm. Elizabeth is now their marketing director." Jack's smile was rueful. "Tonight probably feels like the worst night of your life, but I promise it gets easier." "How did you handle it? Coming to work every day, knowing everyone was talking about you?" "Not well at first," he admitted. "But eventually, I realized that my value wasn't determined by someone else's choices. Neither is yours, Irene. Your work speaks for itself." Our conversation shifted to shared experiences, discovering common ground we'd never explored in our professional relationship. Jack had always seemed so composed, so in control. Seeing this more vulnerable side of him made me feel less alone. My phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. "Jessica and I are leaving. I won't be home tonight. We can talk tomorrow about arrangements." The message felt like the final nail in the coffin of my marriage. "Well, that's that," I murmured, showing Jack the text. "Now I really do need to figure out how to get home." Natalie mentioned she offered a ride. She did, but she's the designated driver for several colleagues who live across town from me. It would be way out of her way. Jack was quiet for a moment, then said, "I could take you." "You? But you're the company owner. You can't leave your own event early. The party's winding down, and the speeches are done. No one will miss me." He hesitated, then added, "Full disclosure, though, I rode my motorcycle tonight. The weather forecast was clear, and I hate parking my car in crowded garages." "Your motorcycle?" I couldn't hide my surprise. I'd seen Jack arrive on his bike occasionally during summer months, but had never given it much thought. "I have an extra helmet," he offered with a slight smile. "Unless the idea terrifies you, in which case I'm happy to call you a cab." In that moment, something shifted inside me. The thought of returning alone to the empty house I shared with Thomas was unbearable, and the alternative Jack offered felt like freedom, a rebellion against the perfect corporate image I'd maintained for years. "You know what? I'd love a ride on your motorcycle." Word of my impending departure with Jack spread quickly. As we retrieved our coats from the check room, I could feel eyes following us, conversations stopping as we passed. Jack seemed oblivious to the attention, but I felt each stare like a physical touch. Outside in the hotel's circular drive, Jack's motorcycle gleamed under the streetlights. It was a sleek black Triumph, clearly expensive and well-maintained. "Ever been on one before?" he asked, handing me a matte black helmet. "Never," I admitted, feeling a flutter of nervous excitement. "Is it difficult?" "Just hold on to me and lean when I lean. Trust me, you'll be fine." Trust was a loaded word tonight, but as I watched Jack swing his leg over the bike with practiced ease, I realized I did trust him, at least in this. I climbed on behind him, thankful I'd worn a simple black dress rather than anything flowing or restrictive. Jack guided my hands around his waist. "Ready?" he called over his shoulder. "Ready," I confirmed, tightening my grip slightly as the engine roared to life. Just as we were about to pull away, I caught sight of a group of my colleagues exiting the hotel. Their expressions ranged from shock to amusement to outright disapproval. David, from accounting, actually dropped his valet ticket. Melissa from HR's mouth hung open in a perfect O of surprise. Jack noticed them too, and turned to me. "Second thoughts?" I laughed, feeling genuinely lighter than I had all evening. "Not one. Let's go." The motorcycle surged forward, and we left the Grand Meridian Hotel behind. The cool night air whipped around us, carrying away the suffocating weight of betrayal and humiliation. For the first time in hours, I could breathe again. Jack took a route through downtown, the city lights blurring into streaks of color as we passed. There was something incredibly liberating about being anonymous behind the helmet, pressed against Jack's back, moving through the night with such immediate freedom. Instead of heading directly to my address, Jack took a detour along the riverfront, where the city skyline reflected in the dark water. He slowed as we passed through the park, eventually pulling into a small parking area overlooking the water. "I thought you might not be ready to go home just yet," he explained as we removed our helmets. "There's a diner around the corner that's open late. They make a decent cup of coffee." The Blue Moon Diner was nearly empty at that hour, just a couple of truckers at the counter, and a tired-looking student surrounded by textbooks in a corner booth. The waitress led us to a booth by the window where the neon sign cast a blue glow across the Formica table. "I probably should have asked if you were hungry," Jack said, scanning the laminated menu. "I didn't eat much at the party," I admitted. "Too busy discovering my marriage was over." Jack ordered us coffee and a plate of fries to share. When the waitress left, he leaned back in the booth, studying me with unexpected frankness. "You know what's strange?" he said. I've worked with you for 3 years, but I feel like I'm really seeing you for the first time tonight. That's because at work I'm Irene the project manager, not Irene the person with problems. I'm guilty of the same compartmentalization, Jack acknowledged. It's easier to keep work and personal life separate. Is that why you never mentioned what happened with your ex-wife? Jack nodded. Partly that, partly pride. It's humiliating to admit your wife left you for someone you trusted. I know that feeling now, I said softly. I keep wondering if there were signs I missed with Thomas, or if I was just blind. There probably were signs, Jack said gently. There were in my case, but we see what we expect to see in the people we love. Over coffee and fries, our conversation deepened. Jack told me how he'd suspected his wife's affair for months before discovering proof, how the betrayal had shaken his confidence, both personally and professionally. The worst part wasn't losing Elizabeth, he confessed. It was realizing our entire relationship might have been built on convenience rather than connection. She married me when the company started taking off, left when Michael's prospects looked better. Thomas and I met in college. I found myself sharing. He was so ambitious then, had all these plans. But while my career progressed, his stalled. I think he resented my success more than he loved me. His failure to celebrate your achievements says more about him than you, Jack said firmly. Maybe. But I should have seen how unhappy he was. Being unhappy doesn't justify betrayal, Jack countered. He had choices. We all do. As we talked, I began to see Jack in a new light. At work, he was always composed, strategic, sometimes intimidating in his focus. Here, in a worn booth, under fluorescent lights, he was just a man who had been hurt, who had rebuilt himself, who understood what I was going through. It was nearly 1 a.m. when we finally left the diner. The ride to my house was quieter, more comfortable. When we pulled into my driveway, however, we both tensed at the sight of Thomas's car parked at the curb, with Jessica sitting in the passenger seat. Want me to leave? Jack asked as we removed our helmets. No, I said firmly. I'd appreciate it if you stayed. Thomas emerged from the car when he saw us, his face contorting with anger. What the hell is this? I leave for a few hours, and you're already bringing men home? The hypocrisy was so absurd I actually laughed. That's rich, coming from you. What are you doing here anyway? I thought you weren't coming home tonight. I came to get some of my things, Thomas said, glancing between Jack and me with undisguised suspicion. I didn't expect to find my wife with her boss. Her boss, who offered her a ride home after you abandoned her at a company event, Jack corrected, his voice level but firm. Maybe consider how your actions affected others before casting judgment. Jessica had emerged from the car and stood awkwardly behind Thomas. We just need to grab some of his essential items. We won't be long. No, I said clearly. You won't be coming inside at all, Jessica. And Thomas, you can collect your things tomorrow when I'm at work. I'll leave a key with my sister. Thomas stepped closer, lowering his voice. Don't be difficult, Irene. This doesn't have to get ugly. It got ugly the moment you decided to cheat on me with my coworker, I replied. Please leave now or I'll call the police and report you for attempted breaking and entering. You can't keep me out of my own house. Actually, Jack interjected, if Irene's name is on the deed or lease, she absolutely can require you to leave. And as her witness, I'd be happy to confirm to the authorities that she's asked you to do so. Thomas looked between us, finally noticing our resolved expressions. Fine, this isn't over, Irene. And you, he pointed at Jack, might want to check your company policies about fraternizing with employees. After they drove away, I stood trembling on my front porch. Thank you for backing me up. I don't think I could have faced them alone. You're stronger than you give yourself credit for, Jack said. But no one should have to handle something like this without support. Would you mind? Would you help me change the locks? I have a spare set in the garage. I know it's late, but I won't feel safe otherwise. Jack nodded without hesitation. Show me where the tools are. By 2:30 in the morning, we had changed both the front and back door locks. Jack tested them thoroughly before pronouncing the job complete. Will you be okay? He asked as he prepared to leave. I can stay on the couch if you're uncomfortable being alone. The offer was tempting, not out of fear, but because his presence had become a comfort. But I shook my head. I'll be fine. Thank you for everything tonight. Jack smiled, a genuine warmth in his eyes I'd never noticed before. Try to get some rest. And Irene? For what it's worth, any man who would choose someone else over you is a fool. With that, he put his helmet back on and rode away, leaving me standing in my doorway with a strange feeling that, despite everything, this horrible night might eventually lead to something better. Monday morning arrived with brutal swiftness. After a weekend spent alternating between tears and rage, ignoring Thomas's increasingly demanding texts, I dressed for work with particular care. If I had to face the office gossip, I'd do it looking my best. The moment I entered the building, conversations stopped. Heads turned, whispers followed. Someone had clearly shared the holiday party drama with those who hadn't attended. I kept my chin up and walked directly to my office, where I found Natalie waiting with coffee. You're a lifesaver, I said, accepting the cup gratefully. How are you holding up? She asked, closing the door behind her. I've been better, but I'm surviving. Everyone's talking about you leaving with Jack on his motorcycle, Natalie said, lowering her voice. It's kind of overshadowed the whole Thomas and Jessica scandal. Great, I sighed. That's exactly what I need. If it helps, most people think it's awesome. After what Thomas did, seeing you drive off with the boss was like something out of a movie. It wasn't like that, I insisted. Jack was just being kind. Natalie raised an eyebrow but didn't push. Well, just so you know, Jessica's version is quite different. According to her, you and Jack have had something going on for months, which is why she doesn't feel guilty about Thomas. What? I nearly choked on my coffee. That's absolutely ridiculous. I know that, and anyone with half a brain knows that. But some people are buying it. The implications hit me like a truck. My professional reputation, which I'd built carefully over years of dedicated work, could be seriously damaged by these rumors. And Jack could face scrutiny from the board for supposedly having an inappropriate relationship with an employee. I need to talk to Jack, I said, standing up. This has to be addressed before it gets out of hand. He's not in yet, Natalie informed me. Executive meeting off-site this morning. But Irene, be careful. Jessica has allies, especially in administration. Over the next few hours, I tried to focus on work, but it was nearly impossible. Emails went unanswered. My team members seemed hesitant to approach me, and when I walked into the break room, conversations abruptly shifted to innocuous topics. By afternoon, I noticed something even more concerning. Information I needed for an upcoming client presentation was missing from our shared server. When I asked my team about it, they looked confused, claiming they'd uploaded it last week. During a department status meeting, several colleagues avoided eye contact with me. Alan from marketing, who had always valued my input, interrupted me twice and dismissed my suggestions without consideration. Am I missing something? I finally asked after the third dismissal. Alan shifted uncomfortably. No offense, Irene, but there's concern about your focus right now given your personal situation. Maybe you should take some time off? My personal situation has no bearing on my professional capabilities, I replied, struggling to keep my voice even. And I'd appreciate the same respect I've always given all of you. The meeting concluded awkwardly, and I returned to my office to find an email from Jessica requesting access to client contact information for an administrative review. The request seemed odd given her position, but she had copied her supervisor and the HR director. I was deliberating how to respond when Natalie rushed in, closing the door quickly behind her. You need to see this, she said, placing a printout on my desk. It was an email chain that had been forwarded multiple times, with Jessica's name at the top. The messages contained thinly veiled accusations about my professional conduct, suggesting my relationship with leadership had given me unfair advantages. "Where did you get this?" I asked, scanning the names in the chain. Many were colleagues I'd worked with for years. "Mark in IT is on our side." He noticed Jessica accessing folders she shouldn't have permission for and has been monitoring her activity. "What do you mean? Accessing folders she shouldn't have permission for?" Natalie looked grim. "Client data, mostly. Mark says she's been downloading contact lists and project details from secure servers. He thought it was weird, but assumed she had authorization." A suspicion began forming in my mind. When exactly did this start? About 6 weeks ago, according to the logs. 6 weeks ago, when Thomas's real estate business had suddenly landed several new corporate clients. Clients who, now that I thought about it, had unusual similarities to Parker Technologies' client base. "I need to see those logs," I said, feeling a cold fury building. "And I need to talk to Mark." By 5 o'clock, I had compiled enough evidence to be deeply concerned. Jessica had systematically accessed confidential information about high-net-worth clients and company executives, including their home addresses, investment portfolios, and property interests. The kind of information that would be gold for a struggling real estate agent. I was contemplating my next move when my phone rang. It was Thomas. "We need to talk," he said without preamble. "I have nothing to say to you," I replied. "It's about Jessica," he continued, his voice tense. "She's planning to file a harassment complaint against you. Says you've been sabotaging her at work out of jealousy." "That's absurd." "Maybe. But she's also talking about the information she's been gathering. Says she'll expose how you've been sharing company data with me if you don't back off." My hand tightened around the phone. "So, you're admitting it? You've been using Parker Technologies' client information for your business?" Thomas's silence was damning. "Look, what's done is done. But if this gets out, we could all face serious consequences. Jessica could lose her job. I could be investigated for corporate espionage, and you'll be implicated too. Just let it go, Irene. Let it go? You and your girlfriend stole confidential client data, and now you're threatening me? You've lost your mind, Thomas. I'm trying to protect you," he hissed. "Jessica is serious. She's done this before and gotten away with it." "Done what before?" I pressed. Another telling pause. "Used company information to help her. Friends. At her last job. It didn't end well for the person who reported her." The pieces clicked into place. Jessica's history at Tech Solutions, her strategic move to Parker Technologies, her immediate targeting of our client data. This wasn't just about an affair with Thomas. It was about using him and our company for financial gain. "Thanks for the warning," I said, my voice steady. "But unlike you, I still have principles." I hung up and immediately called Jack's office, but was told he was still in meetings. Instead, I drafted an email documenting everything I'd discovered, attaching the server logs Mark had provided. I marked it confidential and sent it directly to Jack and our HR director, Linda. Just as I was preparing to leave, Jessica appeared at my office door. Her smile was coldly triumphant. "Working late again, Irene?" Always the dedicated employee. "What do you want, Jessica?" "Just a friendly warning. I've heard the board is reviewing management positions. Stress and personal problems can affect judgment, you know. It might be best if you took a leave of absence before decisions are made." Her threat was barely veiled. I stood up, meeting her gaze directly. "Is that what happened at Tech Solutions? You threatened someone into silence?" Her smile faltered slightly. "I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do. And unlike your previous victim, I have evidence of exactly what you've been doing with our client data." Jessica's composure cracked. "You can't prove anything. It's your word against mine. And right now, people are much more inclined to believe the woman who was honest about her relationship than the one who's been secretly sleeping with the boss. Is that what you think happened? That I've been involved with Jack? Please, she scoffed. Why else would he take you home on his precious motorcycle? Everyone knows he never lets anyone ride with him. Maybe because he's a decent human being who recognized someone in distress, I suggested. Something you clearly wouldn't understand. Jessica's eyes narrowed. Back off, Irene. You have no idea who you're dealing with. As she stalked away, I felt a strange sense of calm. The truth was coming to light, and despite Jessica's threats, I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I arrived at work to find an email requesting my presence at an emergency board meeting at 10. The message came from Linda in HR with no further explanation. My stomach knotted with anxiety, but I reminded myself that I had done nothing wrong. When I entered the conference room, I was surprised to find Jack already there, along with the entire board of directors and Linda. Jessica sat at the far end of the table, looking confident. There was no sign of her supervisor or any other administrative staff. Please sit down, Irene, Linda said, gesturing to an empty chair. We've called this meeting to address some serious allegations that have been brought to our attention. Jack caught my eye briefly, his expression unreadable. I took my seat, heart racing. Miss Reynolds has filed a formal complaint alleging workplace harassment and a hostile environment, Linda continued, referring to Jessica by her surname. She claims that following the disclosure of her personal relationship with your husband, you have engaged in retaliatory behavior and made false accusations about her professional conduct. Jessica nodded solemnly, the picture of an employee wrongfully targeted. Furthermore, Linda added, Miss Reynolds has expressed concern about an inappropriate relationship between you and Mr. Parker that may have influenced company decisions and created an unfair workplace dynamic. The accusation hung in the air like poison. I glanced at Jack, who sat perfectly still, his jaw tight with controlled anger. Before you respond, Irene, Linda said, I should inform you that we take these allegations very seriously. If substantiated, they could result in disciplinary action up to and including termination. I took a deep breath, willing my voice to remain steady. I understand. May I address the board? Linda nodded, and I faced the room of executives who held my career in their hands. First, I categorically deny any inappropriate relationship with Jack Parker. His offer of transportation after the holiday party was an act of kindness, following a deeply humiliating personal situation, nothing more. I paused, looking directly at Jessica. Second, regarding the alleged harassment, I have not engaged in any retaliatory behavior. However, I have reported what I believe to be serious security violations. I opened my laptop and connected it to the room's display system. With your permission, I'd like to present evidence that Jessica Reynolds has been systematically accessing and downloading confidential client information without authorization. Before Jessica could protest, I began sharing the server logs and access records I had compiled with Mark's help. The data clearly showed unusual patterns of access to secure client folders containing personal and financial information. These records show that Miss Reynolds began accessing this information approximately 6 weeks ago, shortly after joining Parker Technologies. The timing coincides with my husband's real estate business suddenly acquiring several new high-value clients. Jessica's face had paled. This is absurd. I was gathering client information for administrative purposes. Under whose authorization? Jack asked, speaking for the first time. Because I never approved access to executive client profiles for anyone in administration. My supervisor said it was fine, Jessica stammered. We've already spoken with your supervisor, Linda interjected. She denies giving any such authorization and is quite concerned about this revelation. I continued my presentation, explaining how the information accessed would be valuable to a real estate agent targeting affluent clients. Furthermore, I received this call yesterday, I said, playing the recorded conversation with Thomas that I had saved on my phone, where he essentially admitted to using the stolen information. When the recording ended, the room was silent. Jessica stared at the table. Her earlier confidence evaporated. There's one more thing the board should know, I added, my voice quieter now. Yesterday, Thomas informed me that Jessica has done this before at her previous employer, Tech Solutions. I believe a call to their HR department would confirm this pattern of behavior. Linda nodded grimly. We've already made that call, actually, after receiving your email yesterday. Their records indicate Miss Reynolds left under similar circumstances, though no formal charges were filed due to a settlement agreement. Jessica's head snapped up. You had no right to contact my former employer. Actually, Miss Reynolds, said Vernon Adams, the eldest board member, your employment contract includes permission for such verification. I'm more concerned about why this background check wasn't performed before you were hired. It was, Linda confirmed. But the settlement included a non-disclosure agreement that prevented Tech Solutions from volunteering this information. They could only confirm it when specifically asked about similar incidents. The meeting continued for another hour, with Jessica's denials growing increasingly desperate. Eventually, the board asked both Jessica and me to step outside while they deliberated. In the hallway, Jessica maintained her distance, her earlier threats replaced by nervous silence. After 20 minutes, we were called back in, but only I was asked to return to the table. Jessica was directed to wait with Linda's assistant. Irene, Vernon began once Jessica had left. The board wishes to express our sincere apologies for what you've endured, both personally and professionally. We find no merit in Miss Reynolds' allegations against you, or Mr. Parker. In fact, we commend your integrity in bringing this security breach to our attention, despite the personal complications involved. Relief washed over me. Thank you. Miss Reynolds' employment with Parker Technologies is terminated, effective immediately, Vernon continued. We will also be consulting our legal team regarding potential criminal charges related to the data theft. Jack spoke next. We also need to address the company culture that allowed these rumors to flourish. I'm disturbed by reports that colleagues were quick to believe the worst without evidence. Agreed, said Vernon. Linda will be conducting sensitivity training for all departments and will be reviewing our security protocols and hiring procedures. As the meeting concluded, several board members approached to express their support. Jack kept his distance, maintaining appropriate professional boundaries, but the look of respect in his eyes meant more than any words. Later that afternoon, I learned that Jessica had been escorted from the building. The official announcement cited security violations without details, but the office grapevine quickly filled in the gaps. Several colleagues who had avoided me earlier now stopped by with awkward apologies. I should have known better, Alan from marketing admitted. You've always been nothing but professional. I'm sorry I doubted you. By day's end, my email included meeting invitations that had previously been overlooked and access to files that had mysteriously disappeared. The swift correction of these small sabotages confirmed how widespread Jessica's influence had been. As I was preparing to leave, Jack appeared at my office door. Got a minute? Of course, I said, gesturing for him to enter. He closed the door and sat across from me. I wanted to thank you personally for handling this situation with such professionalism. Many people would have walked away rather than face those accusations. Running away isn't my style, I replied. Though I admit, it was tempting. I also wanted to apologize for putting you in that position. If I hadn't offered that ride home. I shook my head firmly. Don't apologize for being kind. Jessica would have found some other excuse to target me. Jack nodded, then hesitated before continuing. The board is concerned about Thomas's involvement in this. They've suggested we might want to pursue legal action against him as well. The thought of more conflict with Thomas was exhausting. What do you think? Professionally, I think we need to protect the company. Personally, Jack's expression softened. I think you've been through enough. We could issue a cease and desist, warn his real estate board about the ethical violation without pressing charges. His consideration touched me. Thank you. I think that's the best approach. One more thing, Jack added. There's an opening for Director of Security Compliance being created in response to this incident. The board thinks you'd be perfect for it, given how you handled this situation. It would mean a promotion and a seat at the executive table. I blinked in surprise. Are you serious? Completely. Your integrity impressed everyone today, Irene. Think about it? I will, I promised. As Jack left, I sat back in my chair, processing everything. In the span of a week, my life had been turned upside down, my marriage had ended, and my professional reputation had been threatened. Yet somehow, I was emerging stronger, with new opportunities and a clearer sense of my own resilience. That evening, I changed the locks on my house again, this time hiring a professional locksmith. When Thomas called demanding access to collect his things, I informed him that he could come Saturday morning with a police escort, or he could arrange for a moving company that I would admit to the house. You won't get away with this, he threatened. Jessica's already talking to a lawyer about wrongful termination. Good luck with that, I replied calmly. Parker Technologies has extensive evidence of data theft, and your admission of using that information won't help her case, or yours for that matter. What are you saying? I'm saying that your real estate license could be in jeopardy if the ethics board learns you've been using stolen client information. Jack Parker has kindly suggested a cease and desist rather than pressing charges, but that depends on your cooperation moving forward. Thomas's silence spoke volumes. Finally, he said, I'll send movers on Saturday, and hung up. 3 days later, I received notice that Thomas had filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. For the first time since the holiday party, I felt a genuine sense of relief. The end of my marriage was no longer a devastating blow, but a necessary step towards something better. And as for the rumors about Jack and me, they persisted, but increasingly took on a tone of romantic speculation rather than professional impropriety. Neither of us did anything to encourage this, maintaining strictly professional interactions at work. But sometimes, when our eyes met across a conference room, I felt a spark of possibility that hadn't been there before. 3 months after the holiday party disaster, Parker Technologies hosted a spring networking event at the City Botanical Gardens. As the newly appointed Director of Security Compliance, I had helped organize enhanced data protection protocols for the event registration system. The company had undergone significant changes in the wake of the Jessica Reynolds incident. Our security systems had been overhauled, HR had implemented more thorough background checks, and a new culture of respect and professionalism had been actively fostered. I stood near the refreshment table, surveying the successful event with satisfaction. My team had performed admirably, and several board members had already complimented the seamless execution. Congratulations, said a familiar voice beside me. Jack was dressed more casually than usual, in a light blue shirt that brought out his eyes. The board is impressed with how you've transformed our security protocols. Thank you. It's been challenging but rewarding. How are things otherwise? He asked, his tone more personal. The divorce proceedings? Finalized last week, I said, feeling a weight lift as I spoke the words. Thomas didn't contest anything once his real estate board opened an ethics investigation. He and Jessica broke up, by the way. Apparently, she tried the same information theft scheme at another company and got caught immediately. Jack shook his head. Some people never learn. And you? How are you feeling about everything? Lighter, I admitted, like I've been carrying a burden for years without realizing it. Over the past months, Jack and I had developed a careful friendship outside of work. Weekly coffee meetings to discuss security issues had occasionally extended into dinner. We discovered shared interests in hiking, classic movies, and community service. Yet we'd been cautious, mindful of our professional relationship and the recent endings of our respective marriages. I've been meaning to tell you, Jack said, guiding me toward a quieter corner of the garden. I've been working with the board on restructuring our reporting lines. Oh? I tried to hide my disappointment. wondering if our growing closeness had become a corporate concern. Yes. As of next month, the Security Compliance Department will report directly to the board rather than to me. The announcement goes out tomorrow. I process this information, trying to understand the implications. Is there a problem with my performance? Quite the opposite, Jack smiled. Your department has become critical to our operations, deserving of independent status. But there's a personal reason for this change, too. My heart quickened as he continued. I've valued our professional relationship too much to complicate it, but I've also come to value our friendship in ways I didn't expect. With this reporting change, you won't be my direct subordinate anymore. And why does that matter? I asked, though I knew the answer. Jack's eyes held mine. Because I'd like to ask you to dinner. Not as colleagues discussing work, but as a man asking a woman he admires if she'd consider exploring whether there might be something more between them. Despite the eloquent phrasing, I could see nervousness in his expression. This confident company founder was actually afraid I might say no. I thought you had a strict policy against dating employees, I teased gently. I do, but I also believe that sometimes the right person comes along at the unexpected moment. The question is whether we're brave enough to recognize it. I thought about the night of the holiday party, how a personal catastrophe had unexpectedly revealed aspects of Jack I'd never seen before. How our subsequent friendship had shown me a man of integrity, compassion, and quiet strength. Yes, I said simply. I'd like that very much. Jack's smile was worth every difficult moment of the past months. I've been hoping you'd say that since about 5 minutes after you climbed on my motorcycle. That soon? I laughed. Something about the way you faced your coworker's stares with your head held high. I admired your courage. A voice called Jack's name, and we both turned to see Vernon Adams approaching with potential investors. Duty calls? Jack said apologetically. Save me a dance later? Absolutely. As Jack walked away, Natalie appeared at my side with 2 glasses of champagne. Was that what I think it was? She asked, handing me one. If you think it was Jack asking me on a proper date, then yes. Natalie clinked her glass against mine. Finally! The entire office has been waiting for you two to acknowledge the obvious chemistry. We've been professional, I protested. Professional, yes. Subtle, no. The way you two look at each other in meetings could power the entire building. I felt my cheeks warm. We've been careful. And respectful, which is why everyone's rooting for you, Natalie assured me. After what happened with Thomas and Jessica, people understand the difference between an inappropriate workplace relationship and 2 admirable people finding each other under difficult circumstances. The party continued into the evening. True to his word, Jack found me for a dance, maintaining a respectful distance while still making his interest clear. Several colleagues smiled approvingly, and I realized Natalie was right about the office being supportive. Later, as we stood watching the sunset from the garden terrace, Jack asked, "Any regrets about how things turned out?" I considered the question carefully. I regret not seeing Thomas for who he really was sooner. I regret wasting years trying to save a marriage with someone who didn't value me. But the events that led me here? I shook my head. No regrets about those. Even the mortifying company party exit on my motorcycle? I laughed. Especially that. You know, people still talk about it. Apparently, the look on David's face when he dropped his valet ticket has become legendary. The company historians will record it as the night Irene Walker became a corporate rebel. Former corporate perfectionist reveals her true nature, I agreed with a smile. 1 year after the holiday party that had changed everything, Jack proposed during a private dinner at the Blue Moon Diner, where we'd first truly connected. The same week, the board announced my promotion to Chief Security Officer, recognizing the innovations my department had implemented across the company. Thomas occasionally surfaces in real estate circles, though his business never recovered from the ethics investigation. Jessica, I heard, moved to another state after finding no tech companies in our city willing to hire her. As for me, I discovered that sometimes the worst moments of our lives lead us exactly where we need to be. The betrayal that I thought would define me instead freed me to become stronger, more authentic, and open to unexpected joy. Looking back, I still can't help but smile at the image of my stunned coworkers, watching their always proper colleague climbing onto the company owner's motorcycle. Their reactions truly were hilarious, but not nearly as funny as how wrong they were about the reasons behind it, or how right they ultimately proved to be about where it would lead. Have you ever had a moment of public humiliation turn into an unexpected blessing? Sometimes the things we fear most, like having our private pain exposed to others, can become catalysts for profound change. I'd love to hear your stories in the comments about how a seemingly terrible situation eventually led to something positive in your life. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more tales of resilience and unexpected second chances. And if you know someone going through a difficult betrayal or workplace challenge, sharing this might remind them that sometimes the worst endings make way for the best beginnings. Thank you for coming along on this journey with me. I wish you the courage to hold your head high even in your darkest moments, because you never know who might be watching with admiration rather than judgment, or where that recognition might lead.